Welcome to the Unexpected Podcast, where your hosts, Lee and Amy, carry on simple conversations about everything from life experiences, the current culture, God, and everything in between. And because Lee has put Amy through years of surprises, this is her time to surprise him with unexpected topics he won't be privy to until the microphone is on and the camera is rolling. This is the Unexpected Podcast. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Unexpected Podcast.
How you doing?
Yeah, how you doing out there, guys? We are very excited because we have a special guest today, and I'm going to tell you about him in just a moment. As you know, Lee and I are always here and usually talking about a topic that Lee doesn't know anything about until we get started.
Yep.
But today we did something a little different. I invited a special guest that Lee didn't know anything about until our guest arrived, and I want to introduce you to Dr. Arlie Tagayuna.
Dr. T.
Hello, everybody.
And welcome to the Unexpected Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Unexpected Podcast.
Yeah, now, what you guys may not know is, I guess you're an itinerant podcaster now, since you were on a podcast yesterday. Does 2 days in a row make you?
Yesterday and then the last month too.
Okay, all right. So he gets around, but he was on a.
I don't get around, but
That's right.
But I mean,
We'll keep it. We'll keep that under our hat.
Let's do that. Let's do that. Well, I'm going to tell you guys just a few things about Arlie, as we call him, but he's Dr. Arlie Tagayuna.
just call me Arlie's fine.
Sometimes people call you Dr. T as well.
Dr. T.
So they cannot pronounce my name.
Yes, because I can't pronounce it.
Right. Did I do okay?
Yeah, T is fine.
All right, great. I'll give you just a little bio, not any professional bio here, but a few things that I know about Arlie. We know him as a college professor and is professor of sociology and criminal justice. So he is in there teaching kids. I say kids, college students all the time. Arlie is a musician. He plays the cello. So, of course, we think that's great because we love music. And
yes.
I can only play an electric bass. I can't imagine something as large as a cello and a bow. I can't imagine.
I try.
Well, you do it.
Yep.
And what else do I want to say about you today? Arlie, I wrote a few things down here. Of course, he's a world traveler, and he's going to talk about some of the places where he's lived and traveled to. But one thing that I'd like to say is that we appreciate you because not only are you very talented, very intelligent, but you're also lots of fun. You're a caring person, and Arlie's the kind of guy, he wouldn't brag about himself, but he's very generous with his time and his resources. I know he's spoken to a lot of people's lives, and so we like people like that.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. My head is getting bigger the more you.
I know. Okay, that's all. Now we're done with all that.
Yeah.
The
accolades are taking effect upon his head.
That's right.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. If you don't know, we have a long history together. Our first introduction was when I took Lee for cross-cultural trip. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, I asked his wife to come along.
Right. Yeah.
And then Lee came with us the second time with Cahion.
Yeah.
And so that was fun. And we have a good time.
Lot of fun.
And we have a lot of laughter and a lot of memories doing those things. And then, of course, we also went together.
That's right.
In Liberia during the height of not COVID, Ebola.
Ebola.
Yeah.
Right. Shortly after that.
Yeah.
It was about 2016.
2014.
Was it 14?
16, I think.
I think 16. But who knows? It's been a while.
It's okay. We're all old.
Yeah. That was a fantastic trip. So
it was great.
We got to go on that adventure. And one thing that we are so thankful for was our opportunity to go to Hawaii, because I don't know if you know this, we may have told you, but I love the beach. I love the ocean. I mean, that's my happy place. And Lee's happy place is the mountains. And so when we went to Hawaii, I couldn't believe it. He looked at me and he said, I don't ever want to leave. Like, let's stay. And I said, I would love to stay too.
I can live in Oahu. I mean, it was fantastic.
North Shore, not
North Shore.
Not Honolulu.
No, not Honolulu.
Not Honolulu.
North Shore. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into Well, here's the thing. We love people's stories. I love to hear like the journeys that people have been on. I think it's a real encouragement to other people because there's always something in someone else's story that another person can identify with. So you've lived an adventurous life. So let's start with where it all started. And that would be, where were you born and what was life like there?
Sure. For most of my students, I already told them where I was born. I was born originally from the Philippines, and I grew up there. My parents were missionaries. I tag along with them throughout their missionary life, and then they settled into the city. I also settled in, and then during my high school, my parents moved to Hawaii. The whole family went to Hawaii, and I was left back home by myself, finishing my college. But it was an opportunity for me to grow and be able to travel across the country because I have now the independence without the parental supervision. So I did backpacking out there and backpacking different places.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, it's like that. In my defense, I was left unsupervised. Yeah. But that was also an opportunity for growth and to challenge myself that how I can be independent and develop resiliency. Sometimes it gets lonely because you don't have mom or dad to run into. And so I was proud of myself. I was able to encounter that experience, but at the same time being able to develop and discover who am I. I think one of the key elements is to be aware of who you are and discovering some of the things that you are not really perfect, but be able to move forward beyond your imperfections and your brokenness and navigate yourself under God's guidance.
Right.
I'm not perfect. When did that happen?
Well, you're pretty close, but not quite there yet. No, we're working towards it.
Unless your name is Perfecto.
My name is Perfecto.
So, okay, sure. So during your time, like those years, those very formative years when your parents weren't around, were there maybe different people who spoke into your life in a positive way, or did you kind of feel like you were on your own?
Well, I'm mostly on my own, but I'm very also keen observer of my surrounding. I mean, maybe that's why I'm a behaviorist. I like to see how I behave in response to other people, right? And so in relations to other people. So my first semester in college, I actually intentionally live in a shanty town, a slum.
Wow.
I was young at the time. I was 15, 16 years old, first semester in college. And
let me back up there. Was that a normal age to go to college, or were you just ahead of everyone? I didn't think so.
I think at that time, we skip middle school. Okay. So we kind of forced to grow up really fast.
Okay.
High school, and then by the time you're 15 or 16, you're already graduated. And so at the time, I'm not so sure right now if that's still the case.
Okay. Wow.
But so I enter university and I was intentionally trying to understand because I was a country boy. I like to be to be close to nature, and to be in the city was a little more daunting to begin with. But I also understand that this is an experience, and every experience you can gather something from that experience. Like you're gathering some moss while you're rolling to that hill.
Do you ever feel anxiety when you're in a big city? I now, if I go to like Atlanta, Amy will tell you, I'm like looking over my shoulder. I'm waiting for somebody to stab me. I mean, it's always daunting, and I'm full of anxiety. I think that's just another one of my things I got to get over.
I think that's the way you grew up.
And I grew up backwoods.
Grew up with some kind of the backwoods scariness.
Yeah.
There was backwoods scariness. So.
I love the backwoods.
I like the backwoods.
Yeah. From time to time, I would go to city to just explore. When I was younger, I was like, I like the city life because, hey, you have a lot of things to do. But those are temporary. As I get older, I really want to be more closer to nature. I really like to commune in some ways with God by looking at nature and His creation. But being in the city is also God's creation.
Right.
So during my time living in this impoverished situation or situation. I was not impoverished. I just choose to live there because I really want to understand what's going on in the city. And during the time, that's pretty much where I kind of see where God is, like in the faces of, in the smile of the children, in the faces of the people. And you become to appreciate the beauty of God's creation, despite of all the things that's going on. And so that was kind of showed me a different perspective of life, you know, because like I have a drug dealer, couple houses where I'm living, and then the next door is some sex workers, and then there's some teenagers who are into gangs, and it was really an entertainment for me because I get to see all these actions, or plates are flying every time I pass through that small alleyway, and different kinds of things. But it was fun. But at the same time, it was a little more. It developed me some sort of resiliency about, you know, life is not always. There's always pretty good people protecting you. You know, you have to learn how to survive. To survive. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Looking back, I know there was stuff at that time, but it's wonderful to see that.
Is that what prompted you to start studying sociology?
Yes. I was initially a psychology major. No offense to psychology major. I love psychology because I like to understand myself better. But the more I interact with people and see the systems and groups, how it has a much stronger emphasis on why people experience the way they do, then I become more curious about, okay, maybe there's some sort of a Pandora's box in me understanding some of the problems that we have. I was reading a new book by Jonathan Haidt the other day. It was a good book. It's actually just came out. Forgot the title, so I'm going to do cheat sheet.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's The Anxious Generation. How the great... Sorry, my eyes is not that clear. How the great... Can you hear us?
Let me see. I have to get my glasses, too.
Okay.
Yeah.
How the great...
how the great rewiring of childhood
causing an epidemic of mental illness.
But the Anxious Generation.
So this is just a new book that just came out, and just looking at some of the variables why our young people today are extremely vulnerable to mental illness as comparison to our generation or the earlier generation, that they have much more resiliency to deal with stress, anxiety, or any kind of changes in their life. The advent of technology, the advent of different kind of parenting kind of contributes to some of these kinds of things. So, and that's really fascinates me. It's like, why isn't my generation, like, no matter how hard the teacher will give an exam, I'm there, I want to finish it. And why is now it's
absolutely.
Had a resilience. So you think, and I've noticed this just because I'm not a sociologist.
Yeah.
I
don't have to.
But I do notice society.
Yeah.
And I follow some trends, and just to kind of see where they're going, not because I want to be a part of the latest fad, but I do understand that a lot of times we get lost in a fantasy world. And I used to be that kid that would get lost in a fantasy world in television or anything, but now we have our television with us constantly. So are we looking into a fantasy world, trying to live out that fantasy world in reality to be able to cope with life? Is that something that what are some of your thoughts on that? After you mentioned that just brought that to mind.
I think social media sets some standards. It's a hyper reality, which is not real, and people, you know, the production. You're a cameraman, and you do editing and videos and music. You know, these are just constructed, imagined reality, and then we put that outside, and everybody sees it, and it becomes a standard what we're supposed to be. And now, as an individual watching all of these kinds of things and listening to some of this music, it becomes significantly affecting us because we want to meet that standard.
Yes.
So if we meet that standard, we're cool. But if we don't, then we're not too cool.
Right.
I have one thing whenever I was teaching audio, one of the things that I learned as a sound designer is, don't take this the wrong way. I don't mean this in this fashion of what you may think after I say this. Sound design My job is to manipulate you. My job is to make you either happy, sad,
Yeah.
anxious, fearful, or
Expectant.
expecting something, an expectancy inside of you, to plant those seeds with the sounds that I'm putting in there. So I'm affecting the brain, the synapses of the brain, the neurons that are firing. I'm creating an emotion, in that arena, and I'm trying to push you in a direction of where things are going to go in a movie, in a television show, in a podcast. I can change my voice. I can go up and down. Right. I can take this inflection and I can be all excited and I can get everybody else excited and get everything going. The intensity matters. So that art, who was it? It was Malcolm X and several people that control the media, control the masses. And that influence is powerful, and it's something we have to be careful of because it is great power. I mean, come on, Spider-Man, right? With great power comes great responsibility.
Sure.
Well, and I think it affects, it breaks my heart when I see the negative impact it's having on young people. That's heartbreaking. But I also think it has an impact on people of all ages. Mm-hmm. It started for me, like with 24-hour news. That's something we didn't have when I was growing up. So yeah, you might see the evening news or pick up a newspaper, but you weren't constantly bombarded with information that was going on elsewhere, 24/7. And I don't think we're meant to carry all that. Yes, we need to care about it, pray about it, but I think we're all just carrying more, stimuli from so many different directions.
Right. And also creates a society that somehow becomes less empathic towards other people.
Oh, that's good.
And we become less concerned about other people. Mm-hmm. And then we develop hate towards other people because the kind of subconscious suggestions by these images that we see somehow informs us that these are the people that we need to be avoiding. These are the people that we need to care about. But in any ways, our thinking is somehow, like you said, controlled by a certain technology or whoever are creating this technology and images has an impact in our lives. And so, as a teacher, I teach sociology, the Intro to Sociology class at Lee. And oftentimes I had to convince myself that my students are still, they're worthy to be saved in terms of thinking process. But most of the knowledge that they have are oftentimes influenced by what they see, what they hear. And it becomes some sort of a reality. This hyper reality becomes a reality in their lives that eventually they live into this hyper reality that becomes their reality. And so now we're dupe.
Yeah.
And so, but that's one ways. But going back to your questions, like is that what inspired me to become a sociologist? I think I don't want to be clustered in just one discipline. I want to learn a lot.
Yes. So student of life.
Yeah. So I know a good portion of the psychological theories. I know a lot of good portions of knowledge regards to sociology, and it becomes make me more adept to understanding the holistic aspects of what life is all about. One of the things that's life-giving to me is not just only understanding, but also to change and provide solutions for some of the problems that we're all facing. I know this is a big undertaking.
Man, world solver.
Yeah.
It has to start somewhere. It has to start somewhere.
Got to start somewhere.
Somehow, we need to have more people to solve problems that we're facing right now. It's not too late.
No.
Yeah.
Right.
There's always hope.
Right.
There's a book that I read a couple of months ago. I forgot the name of the author, but he said in the late 1800s, most of Americans are like we are right now. Very factional. They hate each other. There's a lot of immigrants coming over. And then is the culture at that time is very competitive in so many ways. But at the beginning of the 19th century, it's those young people from rural areas started public education. It's not in the city where public education started. And these young people eventually becomes the voice for change in our society for the better. And so the projection of our quality of life has become better at the time that eventually America becomes it's the greatest country to live in at the time, until the 60s and 50s that somehow have differentiated the way we do. But it was that spirit of these young people that started all of this. And so I still have hope for our young people to make that necessary changes of what is happening right now in the world.
Yeah.
And so one of the reasons why I stayed in education is because if I can tell the kids, inspire them that you have the answers and you can move mountains by your desire to help other people or to change things that are unjustful, I think we can transform our society. It's not too late yet.
No. And something you said made me think of, a lot of times we can be in a situation in the world or in a nation, and it seems like it's just, there's no hope. But yeah, when you look back at history, you think, okay, these are just cycles that happen over and over. And so it's great that you are encouraging a new generation to, rise up against, the discouragement that they may feel or the disillusionment that they may have, because it happens in every generation. There's disillusion with something about the previous generation, and often rightfully so. But then if they can also maybe take some good things from the previous generation, and that's part of maturity, let's take the good and let's let's
and
alter what needs to be altered.
That is something that I taught my kids, and something that I did. I started studying people when I was 11, 12 years old. I just watched people. I was like, my kids are not going to do that. And I told my grandparents, when I was raised by my grandparents, I told them, I said, my kids ain't going to do that. I'd see other kids, like my other family members or kids in our town, they would do certain things. I'm like, I'm not going to let my kids do that. The kid that would fall down in Walmart and start crying and throwing a fit and all that stuff. My mom told me one time, she said, you ever do that again, I'll kill you and make another one look just like you. And
this is not parental advice.
It's not parental advice. No. My mother is awesome. She was fantastic. But she had some sayings that I was just really held on to. But what I taught my kids was, whenever you're going through life, it's more wise to learn from others' mistakes than it is to make your own. But making your own, you still need to learn from. And I think that whenever we allow people to make their own decisions, informed decisions, I think we have a better chance of them being successful and changing society. Because what we've got right now is uninformed decisions happening in society, and it is changing the dynamic of everybody's social, construct. I mean, it really is.
I think we owe it to our children to inspire them. Because they're the ones going to be taking the leadership position in the next generation or so. So what are we doing right now to prepare them?
What advice would you give, like, if some parents, or what can parents say to their kids when they're younger? What could we say to the 20-somethings, the 30-somethings right now? What could be some advice that you would throw your way? Now, you're not held liable for anything.
Yes.
But
These are just my opinions.
Just opinions. That's what this podcast is about. It's unexpected opinions. And some facts are thrown in.
Well, the world right now, I would say, is broken, right? And the brokenness somehow is broken because of relationships that we have not really nurtured. And most parents, because how busy we are or we have other priorities in life, I think we need to go back to the very basic. Develop a relationship with your children. Because in the end, it's not the money that we actually had earned that will save them. It's the wisdom and the kind of feeling of attachment that most of us had been injured with this attachment. Actually, there's a term in psychology called attachment injury. And that's where trauma comes in. And that's why some of the kids are very rebellious and not really trying to obey authority because of the kinds of experiences that they have in their family. But we also have to recognize that we also are broken and we can be a source of some people's brokenness as well.
Right.
And so it's really important for us to go back to the very basic on how we can restore restoration of relationship, restoration, our relationship with God and our relationship with our family and friends. I'm not a father, so I don't know.
Right.
However,
But you're a father in many ways.
You've got many children.
Yeah, you do.
So, but one thing I kind of observe is that most of my students who necessarily have trouble adjusting to life are those who have their attachment being injured, not being able to develop relationship with other people, not being able to develop relationship in their work, in themselves, right? There's a lot of hatred among our young people that causes them to become, to lower their self-esteem, that comes to depression and eventually, sometimes unexpectedly would resort to the last aspect of death.
Yeah.
Well, and human nature is, selfish. And I know there have been times in my life or even us as parents, you have those moments where, you just, like you said, people are busy, people are tired. But I think if we can at least start with admitting our shortcomings, not being afraid to say, you know what, I did this part wrong. This part I think was right. And, we followed the Lord on this. And I think this was right and necessary. We maybe fell short here. So the honesty, transparency, and then just having, like in our case, as parents and as a married couple, just making up our minds. Like, we're in it for the long haul, and it's going to get tough, but we're here. And if we can just provide stability for those around us, maybe that's a little bit of spark.
And it's
hope.
hard to provide stability when you're not stable sometimes because you're kind of crazy. I don't know how many times in this whole parenting marriage thing that I've said, I quit. I'm done. I don't want anything else to do with this. And then I walk out and I cool down. I come back. I'm fine. But that's the thing. You can say you quit. You can have that mindset, but you got to come back.
And your quitting was more of a surrender. Like, okay, in this moment, I don't have anything else to offer.
Sure.
I am dumbfounded and my mental faculties are shot. So I'm done.
Yeah.
In my travels, I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned is to have the humility to say sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. There are times that I say bad things or I did hurt somebody. And sometimes I would like to seek some sort of self-defense on how I can cover all this mistake.
Sure.
But just a mere sorry, Parents need to say sorry to their children.
Yeah.
And children, either they accept it or not, they will also learn that, hey, my parents was able to say sorry to me. Maybe I can be able to
lead
say
by
sorry
example.
as well. Yeah. So I think that's something that we're kind of missing right now in many ways. So
just that humility.
Humility to say sorry.
Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit more about your journey. I mean, you went to college and then
I went to
Hawaii.
Yeah, I went to Hawaii to follow my parents in their ministry. But when I moved back, with them. I also got admitted to do my PhD at University of Hawaii. So so it's a kind of double purpose. I was doing my grad school, and then I was also being part of their ministry while I was there. So it was fun. It was good. My training are mostly secular university for the most part. But having been raised in a Christian family gives me some sort of anchor not to compromise some of my core belief in others. So, which is also fascinating. But, Hawaii is a thumping ground, but it's also a wrestling match with God for me, because I feel like at that time, like Hawaii is so small, nothing is happening in my life, and I feel like Moana climbing out the hill, and
Yeah.
there's something out there, you know.
Yeah.
So
There's got to be more.
yeah, it's got to be more. And so towards the end of my grad school, I went to teach at University of Wisconsin, and they invited me to be part of their adjunct faculty. It was actually a lecturer at the time, and I was excited not to teach. I was more excited to see snow, because I've never seen snow in my life. It was fun the first month.
Yeah. And then,
The next couple of months, it was horrendous.
yeah.
It was so horrendous that I have to sleep in my office because I don't want to walk back home. It was cold.
Yeah.
Oh,
It
wow.
was
How
cold.
long were you in Wisconsin?
It was a year. I
Okay,
said no
that
more.
was long
That's
enough.
it. Yeah.
I'm done.
Okay.
And then an opportunity came in New Mexico, and I went there, and then I taught there for 3 years. And then Lee, one faculty called me up and said, "Hey, we have an opening. Would you consider applying?" And so I came here and visited campus, did all my shebangs, and then towards the end of the day, I got a call from the chair. "Hey, we're offering you the job."
Wow.
And so it was quick. Yeah. So
That's awesome.
it was a godsend moment. I don't know. It's like every 3 years, I seems to be I have to move somewhere.
Okay.
This is the longest I ever stayed in one
Okay.
place. So
Yeah.
So you mentioned Moana, and when you were on the island, did you have like a certain song that you would sing when nobody was around? Pretend like the camera's there, and you're like singing a certain song of like, "There's gotta be more," or something.
no.
No, okay.
No, there's one. This is so funny because I was playing this last night. What was his name? His last name is Benson. Mr. Lonely.
Oh, Mr. Lonely.
Do you know that song?
I don't know. I don't think I know that one. We'll have to
it's
look
an
it up.
Old
Okay.
song.
Okay.
Yeah.
And because my parents lives next to the ocean, so every night, midnight till 3:00 in the morning, I'm just there and listening to the crazy song because I don't have friends. I was just transplant, right? So
Oh,
it was funny, but so you kind of going back again, how music manipulates my feeling.
Yeah.
So you become lonelier after that.
It just brought
Yeah,
you
it's-
downhill. It wasn't an
yeah.
upward trend. It was
But
a
you know,
downward
yeah,
trend.
but looking back, I appreciate those times.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there was a time when God really speaks to you, when you're alone, when you're really not hearing anything else,
Yeah.
and that's when He
No
will,
other distractions.
no other distractions. Like this is your time to really listen to me. And I was always kind of, I'm a go person, right? I always want to accomplish things, and I
Right.
want to be,
Yeah.
no matter how hard it is, I have these work ethics that I need to do that. So
Yeah.
But you do take the time to slow down and
God forced me to slow down.
right.
At that time, I was like, nobody wants to hire me because I'm a transplant, so I'm an immigrant.
Yeah.
Even though I have a degree, they don't recognize my degree. And second, I barely speak English at the time. And so that's even added stuff. And then we're in the rural area where there's nobody around of my age, so I don't really have anybody to
Yeah.
talk to except for the old plantation workers in the sugarcane that they're in their 90s. Like, it's like I was forced to speak with them and talk to them and listen to their stories. And then I have all these people who are refugees from different parts of Indochina, Lao, Thai, and people from Cambodia. And it's like they don't speak English. We speak like kind of sign language, and they invite me to some of their activities. I get to know their culture more better and hang out. I get to teach their kids in Sunday school, even though they're Buddhist. And so that really opens my eyes to a lot of things, and how beautiful it is to learn about culture, about people's experiences, and really looking back. I keep using the word looking back, kind of romanticizing my
Yes.
past.
Yeah.
But it was it kind of revolved in the fact that those experiences, so children and young people, gather as many experiences as you have, because at some point in your life, you're going to look back. I'm glad that I have experienced that. Because when I was doing my dissertation, all the things that I was trying to communities I want to get into were just right in my hand. I can just talk to my Thai friend, and they would have to tell me everything that I need to know and do my research. So it was really cool, and I get to know the kind of food they eat and the kind of culture and intricacies that they have.
Yeah.
Now I get to teach that.
Yeah.
That's
That is fantastic. I mean, every experience, like you said, you take it into the next phase of life
absolutely.
and draw from it.
Well,
Yeah. So any final thoughts, anything anything new on the horizon for you or new interests?
Interest. So I'm delving myself now into a lot of research on churches here in our region and also nationally. It gives me some sort of idea how American society are changing, but it also gives me some sort of alarm also what the conditions of the hearts of many of our people going to church. It's exciting, but it's also alarming at the same time, knowing what I know right now. But it also gives me hope
Right.
about some communities who really run into fate just to be able to navigate themselves, especially post-pandemic and what's going on in our life.
Yeah.
And then on the side, I write poetry, and
Yeah.
it's like that's something I really like to do.
Okay.
It makes me aware, because when you're writing poetry, it gives you some sort of your attention is grabbed by this,
Yeah.
right? So the other day I was gardening. I like gardening too, so
yeah.
so I was kind of raking, and I see some earthworms, and it's like, oh, this is like a humble insect. Is it an insect? No,
Well,
it's not.
it's a what are they? What's their classification? It's not an insect.
It's a worm.
I used
It's
to
a
know
worm.
all my biological classifications, but
Yeah.
arthropod
But
or
anyway-
something like that. But
That's what it was.
Anyway, I
Anyway.
said, this humble
arthropod, I think.
arthropod, yeah,
I don't know.
this
We'll call it a
humble
worm.
worm, right?
Worm.
Yeah, all his life has stayed underground and under barks and under leaves, and all their lives they live in darkness. But they do a lot of things for us. They're still being used. They're very important in gardening, and so, I mean, and then I start sitting down and it's like, oh man, this is a good metaphor for people who are living in darkness, right? No matter how dark it is and you don't see the light, you can still be productive. You can still be used by God to something else. And so, I mean, I know some of us have very anxious perceptions about our future as a nation. We're going to have another election and all sorts of things. What's going on in the world? These are darkness that somehow makes us kind of anxious. But but the worm taught me a lesson
Right.
how to thrive in darkness, and so
That's
so it's
good.
really cool.
That's a good message.
So poetry somehow helps me to step back, slow down, and look at my the environment, God's creation.
Yeah.
It teaches you a lot of lessons. So
Absolutely.
and
It really does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't have to be a very deep thinker to do that, but rather just observe and
Well, isn't that the goodness of God too? Because He meets us where we are. He will just like meet us and speak to our hearts in a way that's relevant to us,
Yep.
or it could be something that's going on, like your gardening example, or in fact, a recent podcast we were talking about just some of the ways that God was trying to get our attention even before I had surrendered my life to Christ. There were just certain situations in nature where I knew it was looking back, it was like God was speaking, and He's always wanting to teach us, and He's always wanting to teach us something new, and something that you said really made me think of, when the Gospels, or I think it's in Philippians, and talk about, we share in His joy, but also in the fellowship of His suffering. And in fact, we heard a great message at church yesterday along those lines, that yes, we can always walk in joy, but at the same time, just like Christ right now, He is the fullness of joy, but yet His heart still breaks for the hurting. And so it's trying to navigate that line and just walking with God through that.
yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, we probably need to wrap it up.
Okay.
We are so thankful
Well, thank you. Thank
well,
you for
thank
having
you
us.
so-
to come
Man.
by and
I was I was kind of anxious a little bit.
Yeah.
What are we going to talk about?
You never know what I'm going to say.
Yeah. And one thing I'll say about Arlie is now on here, he's just being, straight up. You can trust what Dr. T had to say today. But he's a jokester too. So probably when we turn the camera off, he'll probably have a funny story for us. And
put my hair
we'll,
down.
And we'll
Yeah,
say, is that true or not? But that's one of the things we enjoy about you is just the heart that you have for others, but also a great sense of humor and great wisdom and insight. Thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Yeah, thank you. When you introduced me earlier, it was very special. I'm special in a different way.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much.
thank you
And we'll
very
see
much.
you next time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See you guys.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
All right.
All right.
Don't forget to like this video and please subscribe to our channel. Drop your comments below. We'd love to hear from you. If you prefer audio podcasts, please follow us on your favorite streaming platform.